I need to have the audacity of a white man when I'm going into these investors.
So I'm about to get real close.
So I need you to tell me
Understood.
what you would say in this scenario. I need you to tell me like how to create that FOMO. Because I think when I first tried to raise capital, I was begging them.
You felt you were
for
doing
money.
them a favor.
Like I was doing them a favor.
They were doing you a favor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I needed to change that perspective. Yeah. Behind every funding announcement is a founder whose journey, decisions, setbacks, and breakthroughs are rarely documented in a way that others can learn from. The First 200 is a media platform and founder network documenting entrepreneurs from distinct backgrounds who have raised more than $1 million in venture capital funding. Our inaugural cohort focuses on the first 200 Black women founders in the United States to raise more than $1 million in a single venture round. This episode of The First 200 is sponsored by The Folklore. The Folklore is a technology platform that helps fashion, beauty, home, and lifestyle brands sell better and market smarter. With just one click, brands can launch and sell products across leading retailers and marketplaces like Nordstrom, Macy's, Urban Outfitters, and Mathis Home. Our AI-powered tools help brands create better product images, videos, titles, and descriptions that improve visibility and drive more sales online. Start your free 7-day trial today at thefolklore.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cherae Robinson, and today we're doing something a little different. Usually, Amira is the one asking questions, but today we're turning the tables to spotlight her founder journey. I've witnessed Amira build the Folklore from the very beginning. Over the years, she's grown the company into a venture-backed technology platform, raised more than $6 million in venture funding, and secured partnerships with some of the world's largest retailers, including Nordstrom, Farfetch, and Macy's. But what many people don't know is before all of that, Amira was a fashion and arts writer who took a leap of faith, moved to South Africa, and began building a business around an opportunity she saw in the market long before most people did. Today, we're going to talk about how she built the Folklore, navigating fundraising, surviving pivots, and turned a bold idea into a global business. Amira, welcome to the First 200.
Hi, Cherae.
Hi.
So glad to have you interviewing me today.
I'm super excited to be doing this. I think it's really important that all of your listeners understand your story because it is just as important as the other 199 women you're interviewing for this.
That is true. That is true. All of our stories are important.
Yes. Yes. So should we jump in?
Let's jump in.
All right. So before the Folklore, you worked in fashion media as a journalist. What first drew you to storytelling, and why did you decide to build a career around it?
So I would say I was like a lot of girls who watched The Devil Wears Prada growing up. And Anne Hathaway, she's from Millburn. I'm from South Orange, New Jersey. We right next to each other.
Okay.
So I was like, I already love Anne Hathaway, watched Devil Wears Prada, and I was like, I'm going to be the editor-in-chief of Vogue. Like, that's it. Like,
okay, that's it.
That's my career.
Okay.
I told my parents that was just it. And so I knew that I really liked the idea of getting dressed up and having, a photo shoot tell the story of that. So I started off with a blog called Bobby Austin's Closet in high school.
Oh, wow.
It was during the Blogspot days, skip school, go to New York Fashion Week, do interviews outside of.
Wow.
When it was, I think it might have been, they were doing it at Lincoln Center, I think, at the time.
Yes.
And I would go out there, do interviews.
In high school?
In high school. Yeah. There would be times I got suspended a lot. So there would be times I would get suspended. And so I had some free time. So I would just go to the city and I would hang out on St. Mark's Place. And at that time, it was like really grungy. You got to go to the thrift stores there. I got my nose pierced there. So I was kind of like living the life of like a kid from a Jersey suburbs, but like who was so close to New York City that I got to see the people on the streets and the creativity. And like, there was with the Tumblr eras too. And so I really started out with like just grassroots, let me just be able to get a Sony camera, take some photos of my outfits, interview some people in New York Fashion Week. And then I got my first internship.
Okay.
And that was at Cynthia Rowley. I was an e-commerce intern. And it wasn't the exact internship I wanted because I wanted to be in media, but it was the one I got.
Interesting.
So I took it, right?
Okay.
Because the thing is, you just got to get into the door. That's how I thought of it.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
My family is full of lawyers. They didn't know anybody in fashion. Yeah. Like that. So if I was going to do this, it wasn't going to be, my dad's going to introduce me to this person, or that person.
Gotcha.
So I was like, this is something I probably got from like fashionistas.com's job board. So I jumped in, stayed there for a little bit, and then I actually got my opportunity to do my first WWD internship, Women's Wear Daily.
Yeah.
And that's what really like catapulted me into being able to then go to Mary Claire, then
Okay.
V Magazine.
Okay.
I was a professional intern.
Okay.
Like,
you were like, I'm getting these brands, these names, these bylines, these internships.
The way I used to be on the train with 10 garment bags on one hand, 10 garment bags on the other hand, shopping bags in the hand. I was a professional intern. I actually interned 3 days a week and only went to school 2 days a week. So
Wow.
Tuesdays and Thursdays I went to school. And then the rest of the days I interned.
Okay.
And I was living in New York because I was interning there, but going to school at Rutgers in New Jersey. So I was doing the reverse commute. So like I had dedicated my life to, if I'm going to be the editor-in-chief of Vogue, that means you are the best person in the publishing.
For
so that means I needed to outwork all of these
10,000 hours.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that really is where I got my work ethic from.
Okay.
Is like being able to, one, also think on my own, because it's like a bunch of editors who are just saying, hey, you need to figure out a way to get this from point A to point B. I didn't really even know the city like that. I was mostly just hanging out in Times Square or like downtown when I used to come from Jersey, right? So now I'm like, I'm figuring out how to navigate. Then I started getting to go to Fashion Week shows. And that was through Women's Wear Daily. I would be a card runner. So I would literally—
What does that mean?
I would go pick up the photographer's card after the show and then run it back to Women's Wear Daily so they could be the first people to have the runway show published online. So it was before you could send like, your photos to—
Oh, so these are like memory cards.
These are memory cards I'm running. That we were card runners.
A job.
And they didn't give us actual passes to get in. They just gave us something that said we're with Women's Wear Daily. So we had to finesse our way in and be like, hey, we're with Women's Wear Daily. Like, you need to let us in. So I probably had gone to like 50, 60 shows by the time I graduated college. Wow. Like Jason Wu, the Alexander Wang.
Okay.
So I was just like all in.
Okay.
But at the same time, I'd taken a trip to South Africa, and it was my senior year of college. I had actually already changed my major from from journalism to African American studies, because I'd had so many African American studies courses that I actually had more than I did journalism. And that just became a passion of mine, because I didn't learn too much about Black history and, the predominantly white town I grew up in. So being able to have access to that, I was just like so enamored. And that's what made me want to go to South Africa for winter break. Me and two friends went for 10 days. That was my first time on the continent. We spent some time in Joburg, spent some time in Cape Town. And that's when my aha moment came, where I was like, wow, this world is so much bigger than just where
the world of fashion.
The world in general. Like the world
itself.
The world itself is so much bigger.
Before you jump into sort of like where you went, like, because you glazed through the fact that you're an intern, you did digital commerce, you were seeing, like you basically spent this time in high school and college really like getting underneath at least the Western American fashion industry. And so before you even take this trip, what do you think is starting to like bubble up in your mind about fashion? What were you taking away from this e-commerce stint, from your card running stint, from the fact that you were very early days in sort of street blogging, essentially? Like, what were you able to understand the skills you were getting from that you could use later, or was it all like, I'm in it to win it, I need to learn everything about this? Like, how were you processing these different experiences?
Yeah, see, I think when I was doing it, because my goal was editor-in-chief of Vogue, that's all I was thinking about.
Okay.
I did also always have like the entrepreneur spirit though, because I remember when I was growing up, I wanted to first be an architect. And so I would draw these like amazing houses, and I'd say like, I want to be the person who develops houses and like sells them. And like,
we share that actually.
Yeah. So it was like a big thing for me. And so I always said I wanted to have my own architectural firm and stuff like that. And even when I was in college, card running and then also doing all these internships, I started this e-commerce company called Midnight Marauders. Named after a Tribe Called Quest album. Yeah. And I would go back to Jersey to this thrift store called Unique, and I would buy things for like $5, $10. and then sell them online for like 3x, 4x the price.
So this is like your first, is this your first
my first
business?
e-commerce business.
Okay.
And I did that for 2 years when I was in college. I remember in my dorm room setting up seamless paper, having actual lights so that I could take the photos for e-commerce and getting my friends from the dorm to come in and be the models, and maybe the guy I dated at the time, he'd be the male model.
Right.
And that's where I first started it. And I remember I actually saw Q-Tip outside of my internship at Cynthia Raleigh when I was going back in. And I was like, oh my God, I just started this company. I named it after your album, da, da, da. And we had like a conversation. And I was just like, so I was just like doing things.
Yeah.
And I was just like having these experiences that now looking back at it, I think more than anything, like, you know, fashion is kind of simple. Like it's not like something where it's like you need to learn color theory and stuff like that. You do if you're a designer, but like if you're coming in as a, you know, writer or as like a stylist, it's not as important. What I learned during that period is the power of hard work. And then I also was able to learn what it looked like to be able to work independently. So even though I was working for big corporations, we had a lot of autonomy and we weren't given a lot of information to figure things out. So that really helped me. And then when I got into journalism a little bit more, and we'll talk about that after I moved to South Africa, that's when I was able to really hone in on that storytelling and research element of why I think I've been successful.
Okay. So now let's jump back into your trip to South Africa. So you do this trip your senior year of college. Was it a leisure trip? Were you trying to learn something? Like what was going on that sort of took you to South Africa, and what light bulbs went off while you were there?
Yeah, I was definitely in my like activist Pan-African,
mindset. You were saying about the learning.
Yeah. So after I took my first African-American studies course, I was like, I've been lied to my whole
100%.
life. 100%. I said, these people been on my neck, not even know.
Right, so I was on my neck.
My neck, and I didn't even know, right? I was growing up in this like utopia of this very diverse town. Everybody was super liberal. And so I came out of there and my eyes were open. And like, I think at the time, stay woke was like the word that people were using.
Oh my God.
And so at the time, I'm like, third eye open, and it was a lot.
We're like, must go to the motherland.
Must go to the motherland 100%. Where my people are.
Naturally.
Exactly. So that's how I ended up in South Africa. I like convinced 2 of my friends to come with me.
Okay.
And I just fell in love with the culture, the music, and then the fashion. Like I'd been working in fashion all of this time and couldn't name one.
Yeah, because now you're a senior.
Because now I'm a senior, and I couldn't even name one Black-owned brand other than Tracy Reese at Macy's. That's who they had.
Wow.
That's who they had. And then maybe the guys at public school had launched at that point.
Yeah, I think around
that time. So they had launched, but like, and then there was like Rachel Roy, she was also at Macy's. So, but it was like literally you can count on one hand.
Yeah.
The notable fashion designers at the time. And so I was like, yo, they have talent here.
Yeah.
Why don't I know about it? Why doesn't anybody at the publications I'm working for know about it? And so I, again, still had this ambition of I wanted to work in media. But I did become a little disenchanted with it when I moved back. I mean, when I got back from that trip from South Africa.
So because you're kind of like basically on the ground. Like, can you paint that picture for us?
Yeah.
Like just for people who listening and haven't been to South Africa, like what's the vibe?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you seeing from a style perspective that's making you be like, okay.
Yeah, I got these sandals when I was in Soweto. And it was these amazing sandals made of springbok. Shout out to PETA. And it was it was these amazing sandals made of springbok, which is only an animal that you get in South Africa.
Yeah.
And they were like $20. And these were the flyest sandals I'd ever seen.
Wow.
And it wasn't a designer label. It was just somebody who just handmade these sandals and was selling them out in Soweto. And then we went to this place called 44 Stanley, which just had, 44.
Love
so
44
just
Stanley.
a bunch of different boutiques. The linen in Cape and South Africa is just like a thing. Like everybody makes these amazing linen pieces. So I'm like buying these linen dresses and I'm just like, these are things that are quality, but also have such a distinct style that I'm not used to seeing because this stuff isn't being spotlighted.
I got you.
And so that, to me, excited me because I'm now used to seeing the same thing. We're talking about color blocking at the time. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. And now I've been doing this since high school, studying the fashion industry,
So
reading
like you're
Vogue
like 8
from
years
cover to
in
cover.
now.
I'm 8 years in, but in college. Like,
Yeah.
So that's when I realized when I got back from South Africa and I was living in New York, people were stopping me on the streets, asking where I got those sandals
all
from.
your new fits off.
And they were like, yo, this is so dope. Where'd you get this? And I'm literally telling people and they're like, no way. So I'm like, there's a problem here. And the problem is that there is so much talent, not even just in South Africa, but in Africa and amongst the diaspora that does not have the proper visibility.
Yeah.
And then even if they did have the proper visibility, there's no access to be able to easily purchase those products.
For sure.
And so that problem to me, I understood was bigger than me because I have people on the street stopping me. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is New York City. These clothes can live in whatever city around the world, you know? And I think a lot of people always thought about African fashion as something that's traditional.
You know,
and
having our dashiki.
prints and exactly.
Ankara this.
And that
Ankara
exists,
that.
right?
Yeah.
But then there's also a talented group of designers who are not doing that then are not getting a platform to be able to show, you know, their own individual style.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I got a job straight out of college. I was working at V Magazine as a fashion assistant. And it gave me the opportunity to start writing. That wasn't my main job, but they let me write freelance on the side and start doing interviews with different people. So I was interviewing like Sampha and GoldLink and doing all of these cool things. And then I just was thinking, I was like, I feel like my purpose in life is bigger than this. And I'm like, because at the end of the day, if I'm the editor-in-chief of Vogue, I still got a boss. And I don't think I thought that through because I've always been a little bit of a, not rule breaker. I didn't do too well with authority figures.
Yeah.
Because I
not
just
shocking.
No,
as a
no.
person who knows you.
Yeah. So I just didn't like. I didn't like that, especially as a young Black girl, that we're just kind of told to just like follow the path. Because I was not the traditional just follow the path. Like they told me in high school I couldn't wear hats anymore because it was a distraction, and so I went and bought a purple wig and wore that, you know, and like so,
oh my God.
So that's who I was.
You want to distract
since it's called, and you can't tell me to take off my wig, right?
Right.
So like I knew that kind of when I got into working for somebody like full time, that I instantly was like staring at my laptop like, I don't think this is something I could do for the rest of my life. It's only been 6 months and I don't even feel like I could do this anymore. And so I was like, what can I
Meanwhile,
do?
that's what you were like working towards.
But sometimes you gotta be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Because like literally, if I would have stayed there, I would have worked my way up. Yeah. And I know I would have been the editor-in-chief of Vogue. I'm sorry. I know.
Period. Claim it.
I'm aware.
And would.
I'm aware, right?
Ciao, Anna.
And so I was like, I'm going to do something that's going to help me support my community, the Black community.
Yep.
Because I'm already
in the global
now
Black community.
In the global
now
Black
you're super
community.
woke.
Exactly. Because now I've been to South Africa.
Radicalized.
And now I've been radicalized. And now I know that James Baldwin and all of these people before me, they use their creativity to do something that, you know, made a big impact. I'm going to do it too. And I can do it with fashion.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, okay, I'm going to solve the problem by creating an e-commerce platform that's going to allow brands from Africa and the diaspora to easily sell to customers globally. And so I applied to the University of Cape Town so I could get a 2-year visa, got into the master's program in African Studies, and quit my job. And the second time I ever returned back to South Africa and Africa in general was when I was getting off the plane with like 5 different bags. And I was now living there.
So this is very interesting because I've known you for a while. I didn't realize that you had the idea for the Folklore, and that's kind of what, I thought it was the other way around. I thought you were at UCT doing your master's and then started the company. So my question for you is, before we jump into the business of the Folklore, what made you pursue that route? What made you say, I've got an idea for a company, I've got experience, I've done a journalism thing, I've done an e-commerce thing, I've got some connections, you know, I've got some big brands and labels under my name. What made you say, and the next step is go to University of Cape Town and do this as I build or before I build, or like, how were you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think I thought about it as I'm this little Black girl from South Orange, New Jersey, and why would anybody there trust me with, whether it's consignment or wholesale, with their brand? Especially if this is their first introduction to U.S. international customers.
Yeah.
Who am I to just be like, hey, let me send this email to Laduma and say, I like your brand. Can I sell it on my new online shop that hasn't launched? But like, trust me, it's going to be nice, right?
Okay.
So I was still coming from being an intern to an assistant. I didn't have like a profile then. And I also wanted to make sure that, and that's why I called it the Folklore, is that I wanted it to be a storytelling piece where I wasn't telling their stories, I was allowing them to tell their stories. And so I felt like it was necessary for me to connect with the culture and the people, and so it can be a lot more authentic than for me to just try to sell clothes and kind of just paint a story. That,
the Folklore is such an excellent name.
Thank you. So that's when I realized if I'm going to build a company like this, I need to be on the ground and I need to be connected with the people that I'm trying to build it around. I need to know what they're eating, what they're drinking, what artists that they're hanging out with,
and it was
music
correct.
they're listening to.
That was correct.
So that's how I ended up. And I was like, I can get a 2-year visa if I do a master's degree. I always have wanted, and even still today, eventually I'd love to get my PhD in African Studies and become a lecturer.
Let's do it together.
Can we please?
I would love to.
Because I have this dream of me in like these really long gray locks.
Oh, wow.
And a full like Issey Miyake 2-piece.
I see this.
Yeah.
I literally now, I'm going to use AI to make it.
Please.
Me and ChatGPT going to make this version of you. It's going to be your next birthday card.
Yeah, so that's how I ended up in South Africa. I was like, I got a 2-year visa now. I'm actually studying something I'm interested in, so it's going to help me later in the career after I do this. You know, at the time, didn't think it was a startup. It was just like an e-commerce business. And I spent those 2 years basically researching, or about a year of that researching, and then I launched and then did another year of school, but I was running it at that time.
Okay.
And I literally was sitting in people's like living rooms. Like,
wow.
You know, Nicholas Coots was the first designer I got.
Onto the Folklore.
Onto the Folklore. I interviewed him because I was freelancing at the time because that was the only way I could make money.
Yeah.
I was freelance writing for Vogue and Glamour and T-Vogue and all these places. So because I am a, ethical journalist, I would reach out to them to do the interview first, publish the interview, and then afterwards I'd reach out to them like, hey, I'm doing this cool thing. Would you sit down with me, right?
Okay.
I'd love to tell you about it. And so he was somebody I'd interviewed, I'd reached out to afterwards, and he like invited me to, in the back of it, he's now deceased, he's like, was so amazing though. But he invited me to his mother's, to the backyard, and he had a studio back there.
Wow.
And it was actually, he was weaving these amazing scarves and sweaters from a tradition that his grandmother passed down to him.
Wow.
And that was the first one I got on. And then after I got him, the floodgates opened. He introduced me to more people.
Yeah.
And so I knew, okay, I want to launch the Folklore initially with 20 brands across beauty, home, and fashion. And I wanted to be from different areas of Africa as well as the diaspora. So I had some brands from the US and the UK as well. And we launched in 2018 as that e-commerce solution. And I wanted it to be like the Net-a-Porter of Africa.
Okay. So that was your original vision was for it to be the Net-a-Porter. And why did you think that was going to solve this problem you saw?
Yeah, because one, the access problem, which is I actually bought the items wholesale or on consignment, and then I had them in, I like to say a warehouse, but it was upstairs in my mama house at the beginning. So I actually went to, when I was in South Africa, I was in Cape Town, went around to all of the designer studios, picked everything up personally, flew to Joburg, did the same thing, flew to Lagos, did the same thing.
I feel like I remember you doing these things.
Yeah. Flew to Lagos, did the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I flew to JFK, and my dad's there at the airport to pick me up. I have 4 hats on top of my head because I didn't want to squish them. I had 2 or 3 coats on, and this was summer. I had 2 or 3 coats on, and then I had like 4 bags around me because I didn't have the money to actually ship because DHL at the time, the prices were insane. So I had to go, it was cheaper for me to actually get on flights and take Ubers to go pick up the items. Yeah. And so I'd started the company with, not a lot of money. So I needed to do that.
Yeah.
And I then had it stored at my mom's place. So whenever an order would come in, because I just used Shopify, I created the site myself, I would fulfill it.
Myself. Pack it up,
ship it. And then when I had to go back for my second year of school, my mom did all the fulfillment.
Wow. Shout out to her.
Shout out to her. Yes.
So this is like super, super, super back bootstrap grassroots. Like you are pulling it together to make this happen. You're trying to make the Net-a-Porter of Africa happen. do you stay in that? Or do you, I know some of the story. So you end up pivoting several times. And so I'm curious, what were the signals that showed you like, Net-a-Porter ain't the right model? Like what were the signals? If you could talk about those pivots and maybe make sure as you're talking about it, you're sharing a little bit of like, why?
Yeah.
Like, so how did you know it was time to pivot? Why did you do it? And then like, you did it several times. So just like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I think I knew it was time to pivot because I'm a very curious person. I think, again, that's where my journalism comes in. I research and I ask a lot of questions. And so I started seeing that e-commerce sites and that had been getting those huge investments and that it had like a really successful exit, they weren't doing as well anymore. And I'm like, if Net-a-Porter and Farfetch and some of these places are struggling, who am I with the little bit of money I have? Because I still hadn't raised any money yet. Who am I to think that I'm going to be able to have the marketing spend to be able to scale when these big companies can't figure it out, right? Especially because now brands are going online. Because at the time, a lot of our brands were not online, or if they were, they weren't shipping to our regions that we were focusing on. And so I just started noticing that pattern. And then that was also the time when I was like trying to figure out what my plan for the big future of the Folklore. Because then I'd gotten to a point where like, cool, I've done this e-commerce. I got some initial like traction. Let me then figure out what it looks like in the future. And so that's when I was like, I'm going to build the LVMH of Africa, where we're going to have a direct-to-consumer arm, then we're going to have a B2B arm because we're going to help brands get into retailers, and then we're going to start acquiring brands in the future. That was my plan. And so I knew that with that plan, I was going to need to raise a little bit of money. And during the time when I was, talking to investors and stuff, they were like, you need to think bigger. And they were also telling me the e-commerce returns are not as good as they used to be because they had a huge e-commerce boom at one point, like right when I was starting, when they were investing in a bunch of consumer brands too, Something Navy, Reformation. They were giving these people money, white women, but they were giving them money, right? And they weren't seeing the returns. And venture capital is about that unicorn status. And so I had to start thinking like, okay, cool, I might have to switch this up. And as we raised our first round, I was pitching to people, this is what we're doing now, but this is the future. Because when you're a seed stage company, they're not expecting you to be the same company even 6 months,
sure. If
right?
you were, they'd be like, what are we doing?
Exactly. They want to see the vision. And so I pitched them, we're going to do B2B next. And there was actually an investor who told me, you can't do both. So you're going to need to pick one. And so when I got to the point of needing to pick one, I was like, we're going to do B2B because number one, again, my why was, how do I make an impact on my community? And me being the only one to selfishly sell these brands is not going to make the impact that I want.
Real.
And we have all of these retailers that also at the time, this is 2020, George Floyd was just murdered. They're making these pledges to support Black businesses and show up more. And so they don't have access to these brands. They don't even know how to do that. There was no other organizations like us at the time. Now there's a lot, but like at the time there wasn't. So I was like, we're going to make it easy for them to access not just Black-owned brands, but diverse brands and brands from all of these different emerging markets. And that's when we pivoted to being that B2B solution where retailers can come and purchase wholesale from these brands, and then we get a cut of however much they purchase from them. So that was the first pivot.
So that's really astute. And it actually makes me want to ask a question about just like customers and demand. Because first you sort of made this bet that, people are complimenting me on the street. People are engaging with me. I think people want this stuff. And I'm going to go move my life to the other side of the world and build an e-commerce platform. But then when you see the sort of headwinds facing e-commerce, you then say, I still believe in this customer segment that like the international market wants these brands. And I believe it so much that I think I have B2B potential. And I think that like big name retailers actually need support on serving this demand. And I'm going to be the channel for that. What does it take to make that leap? And why did you believe demand for these types of brand was that big to make that transition from B2C to B2B?
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of audacity for sure. I had a lot of that. And I think that I understood that we're living in a global world now too, where it's like you're running Tastemakers Africa.
Yeah.
And you have people who are now traveling more than they've ever traveled before. In particular, Black young millennials who are now, making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so
100%.
it was me looking and observing all of the things around me.
Yeah, real.
And being able to understand that person who's going to Ghana, they don't want to just be able to access Christy Brown when they're there. They want to be actually able to get the Christy Brown before they come so they can get them fits off.
Yeah.
And when they get back and they see Christy Brown on Instagram posted something else, they also want to buy it then.
It's facts.
Right? And so that's what really made me feel like, okay, cool. There's still a demand here. I've with my little business skills have been able to do 6 figures and plus in sales over the years. So I know with the built-in customer base that these large retailers have, that they're easily going to be able to market these products and be able to get them in way more hands than I could have, right? Because I just knew, I also have, not to toot my own horn or anything,
I mean, it's the point of the
but I have exquisite taste. Like
you do. It's really good.
The thing that really made the Folklore great is we were really good at presenting like a company that was like worth millions of dollars. And our shoots were always amazing. We worked with the best photographers, the best stylists. And so I was really good at making things look really nice. And I had a good eye for talent to the point where it was like a lot of the designers that we have, they're now sold around the world. We were the first people to sell Andre Ayama before they got to all of these places, right?
You were.
We were the first people to really be selling Max Cosa in the US in that way. So that we understood that like, okay, not only is it just my personal taste of people liking it, I understood that now we've had a little bit more traction to see that people like the types of things that I like.
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, I'm going to just keep this curated vision, but I'm going to just open it up. And that's when we did, pivoting to that retail. We then had our most recent pivot, which was moving away from wholesale and going into marketplace with these retailers. And the reason for that one happened to be because they weren't buying as much wholesale. We're now
the retailers weren't.
The retailers weren't.
Okay.
So we're now 6 years removed from George Floyd.
They start funny.
Because when it rains, it pours. And so already we're in a pretty bad economy.
Yeah.
And so the first things that are going to be cut are going to be these, kind of what they consider charitable, acts, right? And I've never saw us as charitable.
Right.
And that's why I didn't start the Folklore as a charity, right?
Yeah.
I knew that we are business people, Black people are business people, that investing in us, there's a huge upside.
Yeah.
You can see that in athletics. You can see that in entertainment, right?
I mean, in this, you took a headwind, which was e-commerce is failing to make good returns, and turned it into a tailwind, looking at like a market opportunity for retailers.
Exactly. And so it was again me noticing that, okay, they're not spending as much money, retailers, on wholesale because they also don't have that much money. And they're closing stores and they're doing this. So my whole thing has always been survival. Like one of my early investors told me the number one job, or he said, the number one job of the CEO is to be able to raise money and keep money in the bank.
Yep.
I said, if those are the only two things I got to do, okay, that's easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then they're also saying, get good talent and retain them.
Yeah.
That part is a little bit harder for me. But the keeping money in the bank part, it was just like, okay, all I have to do is make sure I don't run out of money. That means that I need to make sure that I'm paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
And when I see that for 2 quarters in a row, we're doing poorly, we got to go figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are afraid to pivot. And I think the first time I did the pivot, I was afraid because I didn't know it was allowed. Like I went to one of my investors and I was like, I'm thinking about doing, and they were like, cool. And I was like, oh, that's cool with y'all? And mind you, I don't even have a board. So I was just, but I'm second guessing myself. I was like, oh, y'all are okay with that? And they were like, yeah, Facebook and Instagram and all those places were not what they were when they initially launched. And that was me learning as somebody who didn't really know. And so I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm gonna do it then.
Yeah.
And that final pivot was also inspired by one of our retail partners, Nordstrom, where they had been buying a lot from us wholesale, but like every retailer, everybody's scaling back on buying wholesale. And they were like, but we have a marketplace we're launching. Like, would you be able to get some brands on the marketplace? Because we'd love to get some more emerging brands on the marketplace. But us working with them directly gets a little bit hard because they're smaller companies. And I was like, we might be able to do that. So I talked to our head of engineering and I was like, how could we like sign up as a supplier on these platforms and start getting brands on? And we built a product, I think in like under 2 months. And we then told everybody, hey, look, we're not doing this whole thing anymore. And we always didn't just make like a random email announcement. We usually used to get on the phone with all of our brands to also do market research and ask them, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Yeah.
And we had enough brands who were like, cool, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And we launched it, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So now what we do is we help brands be able to list their products across multiple sales channels from one dashboard. So instead of them having to create a marketplace to sell on, an account to sell on Nordstrom or an account to sell on Macy's Marketplace or TikTok Shop or Faire, they create one account with us. They sync it with their Shopify or WooCommerce account. And then they're able to select which channels they want to sell on. So they can sell on marketplaces. They can sell on affiliate channels through us like LTK or ShopMy.
Yeah.
They can also now get their products listed on like Hearst and Condé Nast, those like shopping articles, because now editors can get commission off of including them, which a lot of people don't realize that like those shopping lists, it's all affiliate links. So if you don't have an affiliate connection, it's going to be hard for you to make those. And so, we've helped about almost 100 brands launch on Nordstrom in like the 12 months since we started working on this new side of the business. We just onboarded some new brands on the Macy's. We've done Urban Outfitters, and we're bringing in some more. And one thing that we really also had to lean into was AI, because we knew that also raising money and you don't have an AI business at this point.
Not a thing.
It's not a thing.
Not a thing.
And the thing is, we didn't want to just put it in just for the sake of putting it in. So we thought, okay, how does it really work for us?
Yeah.
So we knew these marketplaces are huge. So if you're going to build a marketplace, if you're going to launch on a marketplace, you have to figure out a way to be visible and how you can come up at the top of results.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
nobody's going on Nordstrom and then just going and browsing all dresses.
No.
They're filtering, they're using keywords.
Yeah.
And so our AI tools allow brands to actually market smarter on those marketplaces.
So it's not just getting them on there, it's actually helping them drive sales.
Drive sales on
So I have to ask a question, because one of the things you've done in this conversation is casually mention, we work with Nordstrom's.
Yeah.
We work, that's very Black of me, Nordstrom's. It's called Nordstrom.
We add S's. It's okay.
It is called Nordstrom.
Yeah.
But like, you said it's so casual. How the heck did you get to Nordstrom? Like, how did you get Urban Outfitters?
Yeah.
How did you get Macy's? Like, what was, yes, you decided that, these retailers, needed wholesale, and then eventually we're going to need help on these marketplaces. But like, that's no easy feat.
Yeah.
Especially coming from like someone who essentially leapfrogged.
Yeah.
You were an intern, then you went to school, and you started this company.
Yeah.
So like, you leapfrogged the entire fashion retail ecosystem, but suddenly you're the partner of choice. So tell me more about that.
So I got to start with how we got Farfetch, because that's also, I think, a part of how we got Nordstrom.
Okay.
And so we got Farfetch because I actually went to a New York Stock Exchange event, and I think one of the speakers was the president of Farfetch North America.
Period.
And I raised my hand during the question period and was like, what are you doing to make sure that there's more Black-owned brands on Farfetch, and how can my company, the Folklore, help? And he gave me like a brief answer and then was like, talk to me after the conversation.
We love it.
And we spoke. I told him what we were doing. He gave me an email. And then I think like 6 months later, and this is right before the pandemic, I believe, right? About 6 months later, we launched 20 brands from Africa and the diaspora on Farfetch, tripling the amount of Black-owned brands that they had on the site at the time. And it was a big press push too. Like, they gave us marketing dollars. We did a whole shoot in Lagos, Nigeria with all the products we were launching. And that really took us from just a cute little e-commerce site to like, oh, the Folklore is like something to be reckoned with. And we hadn't even raised any money at the time, right? And so that, I think, gave us the momentum. So I ended up talking to somebody from the CFDA about how I want to work with more retailers. I'm about to do this pivot. Nordstrom's like my dream, because I've been shopping at Nordstrom since I was young. The Nordstrom at Shore Hills Mall was like my place.
Listen,
and
love Nordstrom.
All my Ugg boots are from there.
Period.
And so I was like talking to somebody at the CFDA, I think the president of the CFDA, and he was like, oh, I can introduce you to this guy who I know who's good friends with like the Nordstrom family. So then I talked to him, and then he goes, cool, I'm gonna give you Pete Nordstrom's email, and you tell him you know me, and tell him who you want to talk to.
Not Mr. Nordstrom himself.
Mr. Nordstrom himself.
Wow.
And so what I do, I sent Pete an email. I said, hey, Pete, I had this company and I'd like to talk to your chief merchandising officer. Because if I'm going to go all the way to Pete, I'm not about to go ask for a director or a manager. I always wanted to go all the way to the top.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I think within 30 minutes, he responded back, connected me with.
Wow.
And it took about, I think, 3-6 months for that deal to go through. And then after that, we launched our first brands with Nordstrom. So it was all about me, similar to your story, just telling people what I wanted to do. And somebody connected me to this person, and then me asking and being bold enough to be like, yeah. And they, again, I think I made the Folklore look really good. So they didn't know it was like me and like maybe 2 or 3 people behind trying to make it look good. Yeah. So that's how those happened. And a lot of, my introductions to these big retailers. We work with Shopbop, Bergdorf's, all of the big ones have all been from just me being bold and getting intros.
So you're taking big swings. You're building this thing. You're emailing Pete Nordstrom. But like, how are you funding this thing? Like, what is happening? How are you making money? You're still in grad school. Maybe you've gotten your master's by now. But like, walk us through the money's coming from early days. And I guess when you said, like, I need to raise real venture capital to do this.
Yeah. I had started the Folklore with $30,000. I had saved $20,000. And how I did that when I was only making like 30 at the time, I don't know. My dad did pay my rent for my first year.
Real.
I was working.
Shout
out to Timmy.
And to your mama. I mean, they were paying rent.
Look, it was teamwork make the dream work. Shout out to the Rasools.
Listen.
And so my dad gave me $10,000. I'd saved $20,000. And so I had 30.
And then your mom was your employee.
And then my mom was my employee. Yes, free labor.
Right.
And so I said, this is all I have. So everything else just has to be revenue. And so for the first, I would say 3 years of the company, that was it. We just made enough money to, we weren't making tons of money, but it made enough money to pay our Shopify bill. Yeah. And then to pay for the small, photo shoots that we need to do. I wasn't paying myself, obviously. And then I was just living off of freelance writing, and I was living with my parents.
So that's how you're kind of funding the business as it's going.
Yes.
And when did you know, like, this version of funding the business isn't working and I need to raise money?
When the pandemic hit, and I started looking at professor jobs.
Real.
Because I said, I have a master's degree in history. There's nothing else for me to do.
Real.
And so I was like, because we used to do pop-ups and stuff like that. We couldn't do that anymore because that used to be our money makers.
That's where you can make money.
And so I was like, I don't know what I'm about to do with this. And so I was like, I'm going to need to raise capital. And I tried to like do some capital before we even launched. Like, I knew a little bit about venture capital, but not enough to actually know how to raise it. I just knew what it meant, right? And so this time I was like, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it, right. And I ended up meeting Isaac from Techstar Seattle. He was the MD there. And he was like, I love what you're building. You should apply for Techstars. But I'd already been burnt by YC, where they like flew me out to, wherever they are in California, just to give me a 10-minute interview and then tell me no because I don't have a co-founder. When they knew I didn't have a co-founder when
Before
I got there.
Rude, but moving.
So stop playing with me. And so I was kind of like, yeah, right. I'm cool off Techstars and all these accelerators if it's going to be all the same. And he kept hitting me up like before the application was like, apply.
Okay.
So I applied and I got in. And that's what changed everything because it was like startup boot camp.
For sure.
Isaac and all of the mentors and everybody who was there, they basically coached me with not only how to build a pipeline, but also what to say in these conversations, how to build a deck. And so I had set my sights on being able to raise our pre-seed round as soon as we finished Techstars. And so Techstars, for people who don't know, it's an accelerator. And they invest in your company as well. So we got a $120,000 investment from them. That was our first like big check. We had just gotten 2 small $25K angel checks from 2 angels right before then. And so I was able to hire a few people because when you're doing an accelerator, you're all focused on that. And then also I was going to jump right into fundraising. You also have to just focus on that. And so I was like, cool. I got some people who can like run logistics while I'm focused on this. I also picked 5 mentors because there's a thing called Mentor Madness in Techstars where you like talk to like 6-7 people in a day and tell them about your business and then they give you feedback. And then you pick the mentors that you want to work with throughout the rest of the 8-week process. And I ended up purposely picking 4 white men who had raised capital before.
Because I have got the Black woman thing covered.
Yes, exactly. I got a community of these people, right?
Right.
But I don't know anybody who's raised capital, or because I don't know if I'd met you yet. Maybe I just met you. I think you were the only person who I'd known who had raised capital. But I was like, I also feel like as a Black woman, we've been kind of conditioned not to ask for too much.
Yeah, for sure.
Or to be a little bit more shy in our approach and try to be like affable,
Yeah.
So I was just like, I need to have the audacity of a white man when I'm going into these investors.
So I'm about to get real close.
So I need you to tell me
Understood.
what you would say in this scenario. I need you to tell me like how to create that FOMO. Because I think when I first tried to raise capital, I was begging them.
You felt you were
for
doing
money.
them a favor.
Like I was doing them a favor.
They were doing you a favor.
Yes,
I should say. Yeah.
I needed to change that perspective.
Yeah.
And basically go into it saying, I actually am giving you an opportunity to make a lot of money off of this company, and you're either in or you're out. If you don't see the vision, I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you. I have the numbers here. The market is the biggest thing. They're thinking, I don't know anything about Africa. I don't know anything about fashion. So that really helped me with like talking to these guys, and I'm doing pitch practice back and forth for weeks.
Yeah.
They're looking at my decks, and then I'm telling them also certain things that an investor has said in the past. He's like, if they say that, ignore them. They're not your people, right? So that helped me with creating the proper pipeline too.
Yeah.
So if a investor hadn't invested in a woman before, I took them off the pipeline. If they hadn't invested in a Black person before, I took them off the pipeline.
Okay.
If they hadn't invested in fashion or any type of like marketplace e-commerce, I took them off the pipeline. If they hadn't wrote a check in 6 months, according to Crunchbase, took them off of it. So I really understood that you don't have to talk to thousands of investors. You need to just talk to 100 of the ones that make sense for you.
Yeah.
And I also knew running a fashion company, there's no way that the first Black woman that this all-white VC fund was going to invest in was going to be the girl running the fashion company. And so I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time there. And that's really what I was able to get from Techstars. So like right after Techstars, I had launched a process. I was really strict about it. All the first calls came the first week. So I picked like my tier 1 investors. I had all those calls the first week. I told them, if you want to do a second call, it's going to be the next week. And then those third calls were the following week. So that by the end of the first 30 days, I have a term sheet. And I wanted to Slauson & Co. I knew that from when I started.
How did you know you wanted them?
I think they're a little bit like me. They're good at marketing. They're good at making things look good. And I was like, I want to be on with the cool kids.
Good storyteller.
Exactly.
Very good at it.
Exactly. So I said, I want to be with the cool kids. And I also knew that early on, I was going to have to bring in as many Black investors in those early stages because there's not as many funds later on that are investing in the Series C, D that are Black-led funds.
Yeah.
So it was important for me, if I'm building a company that's supposed to be for us, by us, that we have investors that look like us.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want them. And somebody who I actually got a check from, Yohei, he knew Austin. I ended up getting that intro. So they were in that first round of people I was speaking to.
Okay.
And right at the last, like that last week that I was like, I'm waiting for, a term sheet from somebody, it was them and somebody else. And the other people had actually bowed out, but that Slauson didn't know that. And so I got on the phone with Slauson.
Couldn't know that.
And I was like, it was like the last call, and I was like, this is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z, whatever. And I was like, so yeah, you got to let us know by Friday because we have other, people who are circling, and if we get a term sheet from them first, whatever. So I'm bluffing. And then they come back and they're like, we're going to do it, right? And I was just like, oh my gosh, good. Because I had nobody else. And I told them this recently. We were on the phone. I said, we didn't have anybody else. He said, we knew. I said,
they probably knew.
They said, we knew. I was like, look. So we ended up getting them to lead our pre-seed round. And then we...
Okay, I didn't realize. I thought they came in as seed.
They led our pre-seed round. Then we had Fearless Fund come in, which is a Black woman-led fund.
Yeah.
And then we had some angels come in. And we ended up closing the round. I want to say it was like 1.6 million we might have raised initially in that pre-seed round.
And what year is this?
This was 2021, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
2021. And I'm really bad with time though. But 2021, and we closed with 70% of the round was diverse and 60% women.
Okay.
And like, you don't really see that.
That's pretty,
right?
that's
and
amazing.
so that's how we got that round closed. And then we went on and raised an extension a year later that helped us pivot to the B2B solution.
Yeah.
And then we raised our seed round, which was 3.4 million after that. So we ended up raising a total of 6.2 million since we
Which
launched.
is incredible.
Thank you.
Which is incredible.
Thank you.
So now you got money in the bank.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with it? How does this capital now change your business?
What do I do with it? Man, I wanted to run away to Tahiti.
I
but,
mean,
you know,
it made me laugh when I closed my pre-seed, which was like 1.2 million. My mom, when I told her, she was literally like, "Why wouldn't people give you that money?"
Yeah, that's
like,
what I was when I looked at it in my bank account, it felt uncomfortable. Like I felt uncomfortable. I was like,
so many numbers, so many
I
comments.
started leaving like the cards for the folklore at home. Like nobody knew, right? But in my mind, I'm just like paranoid. I'm like, I don't want anything to happen, right? But no, so it helped us build the team.
Yeah,
and that's all. It helped us actually build into a tech company because before we were just using Shopify, we were e-commerce.
Yeah.
So we actually got to build a tech team. We were our head of engineering in a deal. He like built out the beginning of what the folklore was. We got to start hiring people who could like help the brand's member success. We hired like really great marketing people. And so that's really, it just helped me hire because I had been running the business by myself for like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Where I'd have maybe like interns or something flow in.
Yeah.
And then it helped me be able to, I think, start like thinking about it as like, oh, this is a actual business rather than this was my side project. That if it failed, you know, I'll just be sad or whatever. But now I have investors that I have to
and accountability,
you know, make sure that they're happy, they're gonna get their return back. So it made me a little bit more serious, I would say. And it made me a little more stressed.
Serious.
Yeah, it made me a little bit more stressed too. I would say that.
Okay.
And because I'm a winner. Like I don't like losing. Losing to me is not a thing, right? And that's why when I saw that we were having failures, I was like, we're never gonna fail completely. That's why I'm gonna keep pivoting. I'm gonna keep just, you know, as long as there's money in the bank, we're here.
Yeah.
And as long as we're growing, we're good. So I think that, you know, that's really what ended up happening after that. And now I'm happy that we're in this place. I know it took a lot of tears and, you know, unnecessary money that was wasted. I think about that all the time. I think that's like the biggest thing I think about is just like the mistakes we made hiring this person or doing that. And I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
But I'm happy that it got us to this point.
Yeah.
And that we have served thousands of brands across Africa and Latin America and Asia and Europe and the US. We've gotten brands 6-figure orders from these big retailers. We have brands who are making tens of thousands of dollars with us every month from the new, you know, marketplace play that we have. And so honestly, without funding, we would have never done that.
Yeah.
And again, my why was, how do I make sure that I can provide economic opportunities for Black people, people who are underrepresented, and we've accomplished that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I'm really proud of. Yeah.
Amira, this has been such a great conversation. I've learned so much. I think when we did the reverse episode of this, you said the same thing, and I just loved the insights, the tenacity. I mean, I think the tenacity is like the word I would give to describe our conversation. Thank you for sharing your journey, building the folklore, and all the lessons you've learned along the way. Before we wrap, is there anything new or upcoming that you'd like our audience to know about or support? Besides listening to the podcast?
Besides listening to the first 200? The Folklore. Always follow us at the Folklore. Instagram, TikTok, we're always doing things. You can still shop these brands on our e-commerce. So we did bring it back.
But people need it.
The people needed it. But we also, you can now shop all of these brands also on Nordstrom's.com and Macy's.com and Urban Outfitters. If you're an influencer, you can now tag them on Shopmire, LTK. If you're an editor at a Vogue or a Marie Claire, include them in your shopping articles because you get affiliate commission off of them now. So that's what we're really excited about. We're excited about the new AI tools where you can create better images, videos, product descriptions, all the social media things that you need to also elevate your business. We're here for small businesses. So you can always follow us at the folklore.com as well. Sign up for our email. And Cherae, I really want to thank you for doing this. Like, again, you have been such an important part of my fundraising journey. since we've known each other since 2019.
I know.
And
oh my God.
I just appreciate you. And I want to give you your flowers because of how amazing you've been. And I'm going to just try to keep it cool.
Keep it cool, girl. Amazing. Thank you to everyone for tuning into The First 200, a podcast documenting the stories of founders who have raised more than $1 million in venture capital funding. To explore the Founder Index, listen to more episodes, and follow their journey, visit thefirst200.com. You can follow The First 200 on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at First200. That's first spelled out 200. For more founder stories, upcoming events, and the release of our inaugural index and report, visit first200.com. Until next time.